Order of operations with decimals, problem type 3. Evaluate the following. For any order of operations problem, you want to recall PEMDAS, P for parentheses and grouping symbols, E for exponents, M for multiplication, D for division. I write it out this way because you do have to follow the order left to right, whichever comes first. A for addition, S for subtraction. And we have the same thing. You follow the order left to right for addition and subtraction, whichever comes first. So looking at the first letter P, which is for parentheses and grouping symbols, we do have a set of parentheses in which we have an operation to perform. So we do not have a single number there. So whenever I see parentheses in which I don't have a single number, there is some simplification that I can do. So that is where I'm going to start. So I have 26 minus 23.8. Since here we are subtracting decimals, I am going to rewrite it so that I have the place values lined up. And because 26 does not have a decimal, it's a whole number, we know that the decimal for a whole number is always at the end. So I can add in a 0 as long as I put a decimal point. And we're going to subtract 0 minus 8 does not work. We have to borrow from the 6. I'm going to make that a 5, and I'm making the 0 a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. Before I do the next step, I'm going to bring down the decimal point. Because we had the place values lined up, which only works for addition or subtraction of decimals, I know exactly where the decimal is supposed to go. 5 minus 3 is 2. Then 2 minus 2 is 0, so I don't have to write in the 0. So inside the parentheses then, I end up with a single number, 2.2. And then outside of the parentheses, everything stays the same. Okay, so inside our grouping symbol, we have a single number. I've taken care of the grouping symbols. Next thing on the list we have is the exponent, and I see one. The exponent is applied to the single number inside the parentheses, so that's what I'm going to work with next. So I have 2.2 squared, which really means 2.2 times 2.2. So here we are multiplying decimals. We are not required to line up the decimals here, but I just wanted to make sure everything is aligned on the right side, and it is in this case. Before I continue, remember, when multiplying decimals, we have to keep track of the total number of digits after the decimal. So I have 2 digits after the decimal, and that's going to play a role later. Now I can ignore the decimal and multiply as if these were whole numbers. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to skip a space, or you could add a 0. And going on to the next digit, I have 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 2 is 4 again. And we're going to add those numbers. I bring down the 4, I get 8, and I bring down the 4 again. There were 2 digits in total. Before we multiplied, the numbers had 2 digits in total after the decimal, so my answer is going to have 2 digits after the decimal. Okay, so the result is 4.84. Going to bring that back to the original problem. Okay, and the rest remains the same. Okay, we've taken care of the exponents. Then we have to follow the order left to right for multiplication and division. I do not have any multiplication, but there is division, so that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so I have 74.4 divided by 0.3. And for this, I'm going to set up long division. The divisor always comes on the outside. Okay. So we saw subtraction with decimals. Addition and subtraction requires us to line up the place values. For multiplication, we keep track of the number of digits after the decimal in total before we multiply, and then we just add it in later. For division, we have to make sure the divisor is a whole number. And in order for me to do that, I have to move the decimal place. I move it only once. Then what I do to the divisor, I must do to the dividend. Because division does represent a fraction, and what I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. So I'm going to move that one place also. Then our division becomes 3 divided by 744. Now it doesn't matter whether the dividend has a decimal in it or not. It could, and that wouldn't be a problem. The restriction is on the divisor, which is on the outside. It has to be a whole number. So when I proceed with this division, 3 goes into 7 2 times. 3 times 2 is 6. When I subtract, I get 1. I'll bring down the 4. 3 goes into 14. 4 times. 3 times 4 is 12. When I subtract, I get 2, and I have another digit to bring down. It's 4. 3 goes into 24. 8 times completely. And I'm left with a remainder of 0. So that part becomes 248. So I have 4.84 plus 248. Okay, we've taken care of the division. Now on to the addition and subtraction. I only have addition left. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And in order for me to add, I want to make sure I line up the place values. So I have 4.84, and I'm going to add to that 248. If it helps, you can add in a decimal for the 248 and put in some extra zeros. Okay, but before you add in zeros, you want to make sure you put the decimal in. Otherwise, you will be changing the value of the number. Then from here, it's simple addition. We have our decimals lined up, so we know in the answer where the decimal will fall. 4 plus 8 is 12. We're going to carry the 1. Gives me 5, and then 2. So the answer for this ends up being 252.84.